Hi, Claudia here from Create with Claudia. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today is my second episode of Working Our Scraps Off. I'm really excited about this. This is a new program that I'm doing. It's a once a month episode that I bring to you. It's a free tutorial. I also have the written tutorial on my website, as well as a downloadable PDF pattern. And it's all about using up our scraps. I know all of us quilters have tons of scraps. This is just 3 boxes and they're all messy. And this is what prompted me. They're overflowing. I don't have enough room for all of my scraps anymore. And I really don't feel like going out and buying more bins. So I thought, let's put them to good use finally and use up some of those scraps. This month we're doing something really fun. We're doing a rainbow. It's a mini quilt rainbow. I just was in the mood to do rainbows. They're happy, they're fun, they're bright, they're colorful, and they're a great way to use up a lot of those different colored scraps. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you know the next time. Again, it's every month I do this program. I think it's the 3rd or 4th. I haven't quite decided if it's the 3rd or 4th Friday yet of each month. And the other thing I really want to do is I want to start doing them live. I just don't have the nerve to do that yet. Hopefully in a month or two when I'm more used to this format. Normally I film a little differently. I don't film as much of me. I'm sort of camera shy. I film top down so you can see just my work, and then I'll do a little intro and an ending to all my videos. But this one you actually see the whole process, and that's my whole purpose of doing this. You see my sewing process, how I lay it out, that sort of thing. It is still edited, and that's maybe why I'm a little shy about doing it live, is I do edit a few things, and you never know, I might say a bad word and I don't want to do that either. So anyway, let's get started on this project. I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. I always love new subscribers, and I am on social media at Create with Claudia. Enjoy the video. Okay, so for this one, like I said before, we're just cutting 2-inch squares. That's all we need. We're not going to cut them down. It's just 2-inch squares. Really, really easy. And it's a nice way to use up some of those small scraps you might have. So I'm just going to give you the colors and how many we need of each one. So for pink, that's going to be that center of the rainbow. You just need 1 square cut 2 inches. For purple, you need 5 squares. For blue, and this is like a real blue, it's I use a little bit of darker blue. For blue, you need 9 squares. For turquoise, let me just move these over a little bit. For turquoise, you need 13 squares. For greens, and I use a lot of different shades of green. For green, you need 17 squares. For yellow, blue is my favorite color, but yellow, I'm digging the yellow today. I don't know why. Maybe it's that bright yellow. Yellow, you need 21 squares. Orange, you need 25 squares. And last but not least, for that outer edge, you need red, and you need for that 29 squares. Now, you can always mix up your rainbow. It doesn't have to be, sort of has to be in this order, but maybe you could start with a different color. Maybe if you wanted the pink on the outside, you could do it that way. You can figure out your rainbow whichever way you want. But this is how I did mine, and now we're just going to lay it out, and then we're going to sew it. Again, this is super easy to do. So one of the things I love, before I finish up here, I just wanted to say one of the things I really love about scrap fabric projects is you can see all these fabrics I used before in projects from maybe many years ago. Like this is really fun, and it fits in this. It's actually from Halloween, and it has spider webs on it. And this was a fabric that was given to me by a woman whose friend had passed away. And it was just a lovely gift for me of her fabric, because she couldn't use it, and her friend, of course, had passed away and had given her the fabric. So that's one of the reasons I love scrap fabric projects. Also, I just love the play of color, and I love I used to love drawing with crayons and that sort of thing. So this is like me drawing when I was a kid. All right, so here it is. It's all laid out. I'm ready to go. I just love the way this turned out. So much fun. I just love all the different fabrics. They bring back some nice memories. One of the things I did, you may have noticed when I was putting them together, laying them out, excuse me, I don't like having the same fabric next to each other. It makes it more scrappy. I also, if I can avoid it, I like to use each fabric that I use would be a different one. I didn't manage to do that on the outside. The last two rows, I got a little lazy and I cut out maybe 2 or 3 squares at the same time. But I do try to mix it up. Just a fun, happy layout, and again, super easy to make. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew together the columns. I call the shorter strips the columns, and then these longer ones are my rows. So the way I like to do this is I sew together the columns first, press them, and I press them to opposite. Like this one I would press this way, this one I would press that way. That way when I sew the columns together, I can nest those seams, and I will show you that. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you a few, just a couple of columns that I'm going to sew together, and then I actually am going to turn the camera off because it'll take a little while for me to sew all these together. And then when I come back, you will see all of the columns sewn together. I'll show you how to join those, and then we will have our rainbow mini quilt top. Okay, so you can see that I've pressed all of my columns. They're all sewn together. It's really coming together. I can't wait to sew the columns together. So now what I'm going to do is just that. I'm going to sew the columns together. And I did want to point out one thing. When you're sewing the columns, the individual columns together, like this one, for example, I just chain piece them. It's easier that way. However, I will say when you get to these rows where each color is different or almost every color is different, just keep an eye on your order. I just sort of have a system that I do is I get into a rhythm and I just keep going. But I definitely in the back of my head, I'm like, oh yeah, the red should be on top, the pink should be on bottom, that kind of thing. So you do need to take a little bit of extra time just so you don't get them mixed up. And that's one of the reasons I like to lay it out on a big surface next to my machine. And that way I can just make sure I can eyeball it and make sure as I go along that I didn't put like green up at the top instead of blue or red or whatever. So that's my tip for that. So to sew the columns together, I highly recommend pinning. And again, I did sew these, let me just show you real quick. I press them in opposite directions. You can see these go towards the red, these go away from the red. That way they nest together nicely when I'm pinning them together. So we're going to go ahead and pin. And you just want to make sure those seams are nesting up to each other nicely. And I like to pin right on that seam. And you're just going to go down the line. I take a peek. I always pull it back and just peek and just make sure those seams are nice and even. Okay, so that is pinned together, and now I'm ready to sew down. The one thing I did forget to mention, and I'll put remember, this is my reminder to myself to put a note at the beginning of the video. Make sure you it's a 1/4 inch seam throughout, or just maintain the same seam throughout. I use a 1/4 inch. All right, so there we go. There's my one little corner. I'm going to go ahead and start pinning more. I don't have enough pins to pin them all together. I would normally, if I was at my regular sewing table, I would have pinned all these together and just sewn them all at one time. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to finish this up, and then we will be done with this mini rainbow quilt top. All right, so here we go. I've sewn a couple columns together. I've sewn all the columns together one time, and then basically you get the picture. You're just going to sew each column together again and again and again until it's all finished. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that. This is the long part of this, and this is the long part of when you have so many little scraps sewn together. But this time when I come back, I'm going to have the whole thing pieced together. All right, so here it is. It's all finished up. Looks lovely. I'm so happy with this. I'm going to flip it around because one thing as I get my glasses out of the way, I normally do shoot from overhead, so I'm not used to the camera being in front of me like this. But hopefully you can see it. Just a really fun little make. Now what I'm going to do, whoops, let me move it back a little bit, is I'm going to get the backing, the batting. I'm also going to change out the foot in my machine so that I can do some easy machine quilting. I don't do a lot of curly Q stitches. It's love to have the time to practice that. I don't do that. But what I am going to do is quilt in the ditch, just along here and along here. Very simple. And so I'm going to go get my machine ready and the other supplies ready, and when we come back, I'll show you how I quilt it. Okay, so I'm back. I'm ready. This is all laid out. I'm ready to quilt this little mini. You can see I fix up my machine. I put this on here, so we're good to go. The one thing I will point out, when I make small pieces like this, I don't pin base. Normally I do. When it's a bigger quilt, I will pin base, but for this I won't. It's small enough that I don't think it'll slip and slide too much, and it's very easy quilting. I am not moving it around. I'm doing just straight line in the ditch quilting, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on that now. Normally, I think what I'll do is I'm probably going to do the short ones first and then do the long ones. All right, so here we are. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to trim off the edges, and then I'm going to add the binding. I'm not going to show you how I do the binding, only because a lot of people do binding, totally different ways. I like to use 2.5-inch strips, and then I just work my way around in one long strip. And I will probably just find some scraps to bind this with. I probably have I have a big bowl of sort of the ends of binding on other quilts, and I like to piece those together so I don't waste any of that. But that's how I'm going to do that. So when I come back, the whole thing will be finished, and our little mini rainbow wall quilt will be finished. Okay, I'm back. Here it is. It's all finished. I put the binding on. I actually found some Christmas table runner binding that I had left over. It's just sort of fun and quirky. It works because it's a scrap piece. You could use red or pull out one of the colors of this if you wanted. It's kind of green, so I just thought it was perfect. I really do like to use up what I have before I cut into new fabric. So this is just a fun little make. It's about 12.5 by 23 inches, so it's a nice wall hanging. It would go cute in a kid's room or your room, wherever you want to put it. It's just a lot of fun, and it is a great scrap buster. And best of all, it's really easy to make. 2-inch squares, and that's it. And you just lay them out however you want. Looking at it, I probably would maybe make these a little bit darker next time if I make another one. But all in all, I'm just really happy with it. It's just a lot of fun. Don't forget, you can get the pattern for this rainbow wall hanging over on my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. And I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers. Thank you so much. And stay tuned because next month we have a whole new project for scraps. We're working our scraps off, and this was episode number 2. I also am on social media at Create with Claudia. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day.